Good
Good morning.
evening, San Francisco. Welcome to Free Talk SF. This is freetalksf.com, the San Francisco's #1 show for freedom, empathy, and independence for all people in San Francisco and cats. Cats are now included in the show topic, no dogs. But so this show is dedicated to freedom, empathy, and independence for everyone in San Francisco. And I'm excited that we're now broadcasting on 88.1 KGay. The operators of a new local radio station have agreed to put us on the show. On the station. So tune in to your old-fashioned radio, 88.1 KGay for independence and freedom. All right. With me today is Derek J.
Hey, Steven.
The fabulous Derek J. You all know him from all over the interwebs, his beautiful smile and blue eyes. And I'm Steven Zeiler, your host. I wanted to talk today about, San Francisco is a great place. There's a lot going on. Lots of people are happy. There's lots of wealth. And it gives me optimism when I see all the ridiculous things that the state is doing here that are just making everyone's lives less good. And but it seems like we've got a lot of low-hanging fruit for things, and in the news recently especially. So I wanted to go over some local news. We got high tech and charity meets government. The headline of the San Francisco Examiner this week: phony solution. Controversial mobile app allows residents to report homeless people to the city. And that's
boo.
That's capital T, capital C, the city. I like how the Examiner always references the corporation, the city of San Francisco, with the capital letters. But this app, it's actually a really cool idea. If you see someone who's having a bad time, maybe they look malnourished or they're homeless and they need help, you can use this app. I believe it's called 311 or 411, one of those. It doesn't matter. I don't recommend it. But it allows you to report to sounds like the city officials and the police so they can do something about it.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll get right on that. Wait. You say there's a homeless person in San Francisco? Stop everything. We'll be right there.
Yeah, but we were thinking about just the other day. How do we have more empathy for homeless people and people who are less privileged or like very unprivileged for a lot of these people? And
the feet washing brigade.
Yeah,
wash their feet.
Yeah, like that. I'm thinking about direct action. How can we act on this empathy? And one of the really sad things, and this app is kind of cool. I think the app should be directed specifically for like helping homeless people. Like, can nearby people help homeless people or help people in need? But what this is a part of a bigger San Francisco, the city app where you can report all kinds of stuff and the police are involved.
I think this app could be valuable if it were just sent to local churches or synagogues instead of the city, because the city just won't do anything. But the churches actually feed people on a regular basis. They could come with food. They could come with an offer of shelter. They could actually help.
Yeah, that's a great idea. There are tons of people who are actually trying to help. I mean, you see them out feeding homeless people all the time, but to be able to get on the spot, like real-time feedback is what will enable us to actually help people in real time. But like, I'm sure the app now, that it goes into the city's database. It's not like this public feed of data that everyone can access, and it's not being promoted that way. It's being promoted as an internal tool for the police. So a lot of homeless people or homeless advocates lost the second page of the article, but a lot of homeless advocates say that this is just going to be people snitching on homeless people to get them rounded up.
Yeah, that's what I think it would be mostly used for. Hey, I don't like this guy hanging outside of my business. Would you go clean him up for me? It's a litter removal service app.
Right. Yeah. And that's not, I don't think
Human
that's
litter.
what we really want. And that's probably not what they intended. It's just that they are city officials. So, well, that maybe is what they intended. Um, how can we
Probably
actually
the
help
people
them?
who proposed it intended to help, but the people, it's like it's using the wrong tool for the problem. The government can't help. They can only make things worse. They're going to call the police. Do you think the police are the people that the homeless want to interact with?
So a lot of people say, well, yeah, charities are nice and all, and they would help a lot, but we need the state for this and that. And what they always tell me is collectively they want to pay for the state to help homeless people. So I think the most effective way would actually be able to help people pay directly for helping others, like in more of a marketplace for helping. And we can then help the people who are easiest to help or where it's most effective and direct money in a more decentralized fashion rather than through the city. And one sad thing in this article, what I wanted to get to is one woman said, this is great that we have this 311 app because I see homeless people and I think there's nothing I can do to help. And now that I can report them to the city, there is something. And that
Doesn't she give to charity?
you can't, but that's insane, really, to think that there's nothing you can do to help a person. Like,
Give them a sandwich.
give them water,
Wash their feet.
give them, yeah, wash their feet, give
That's
them a
pretty
smile,
intense.
ask them what they need, or tell other people about them and like maybe understand who they are.
Offer them a job.
Yeah, there's plenty of things that people could do. Now, of course, one of the big problems here in San Francisco is zoning and approvals eliminate much of the possibility for people without privilege to start a business in the city and in their neighborhood. So you need a lot of capital to start a business. That's why a lot of people are homeless. Well, I want to move on. Any last thoughts on the homeless app, Derek?
No, it's over. We're moving on.
We only got so much time on this show. It's
We're at breakneck speed.
we got a lot of things to talk about. Okay, next thing. Wow. So my big theme here is freedom, independence, and how we can apply that to all kinds of problems we're having. And one of the most prominent problems is water here in San Francisco. I was just at a restaurant the other day. They used to have a water container. Now you don't get water for free. You have to ask. They fill it up behind the counter. And what's happening? Well, we're using all the water. And why is that happening? I believe definitely that it's happening because of a monopoly on the provisioning and production of water. The San Francisco city has a monopoly on transporting water into the city and distributing it, and they have reserved this one reserve
To make sure that there's plenty for everybody.
Right.
That's why they have the monopoly, right?
Oh, well, I imagine that's why a lot of people think they have a monopoly. I'm sure there are actual interests that are making a lot of money on this, but people think that they need a monopoly in order to provide for things that a lot of people rely on. Where the opposite is true, where we actually need competition the most, where in the most essential things.
And price discovery. There's no price on the water, right? Is there, or the price is chosen by the monopolist instead of by the consumers and the market?
That's right. The price is set by the monopoly utilities and the city boards. And if there was a shortage of water, prices would rise until people either demanded less or it would actually incentivize more production of water. So related to this show, I think the city of San Francisco could be much more independent in its production of water, as in producing water right out of the ocean. Yeah. Like there's water all around us. And it's kind of sad to see this headline, SF tapping into nearby water sources. So they are running out of water in the Hetch Hetchy Reservoir, and they have decided to suck up the two closest reservoirs and just take the water from that too. There isn't any price structure or competition, and there really isn't private ownership of any of this water either. So people aren't free to provide water. I would love to see actual prices in water, prices that would be able to drive production of more water. And even then, maybe companies that are researching how to produce water out of the bay and charging like really high prices for locally grown water for people who can afford it in order to get like bootstrap independent water production rather than using all the water from the reservoirs. Though it is kind of sad to hear people blaming the city residents and the people who drink the water, because most of the water is used by farms who get incredible subsidies. They only pay like a tenth the price for mortgages on the land because they have subsidies from the government. They have subsidies for water. So they're the ones using most of the water, but we have to have a bunch of propaganda for like, there's like propaganda on the buses, keep your shower 3 minutes long, or conserve everywhere. Yeah. Any thoughts on the water shortage, how we could become more independent there?
My thought goes to water bottles, water being delivered. I don't see as much delivery of water here as I do in other places around the country where like businesses will have the fancy water and in the water coolers, imported, and more of a market for water. It just seems to me that if the earth is 2/3 water, then it should be abundant and cheap. But right now it's scarce, and I think it's partially due to the fact that there's no price discovery for this. Like you said, it's a monopoly, and the more competition, the more water will be available necessarily.
Yeah, and I can definitely see how this came about. Like the people in San Francisco were getting really wealthy. They figured we can take care of everyone. We can just build something that would be way more than we would ever need. And then because it's free, everyone uses it without trying to develop markets or developing alternative solutions. And then we run out.
Well, also one idea off the top of my head about the ways that these new emerging companies could differentiate themselves is additives to water, like Propel. Like there's companies that add flavors to water and minerals, and there's companies that would want nothing at all to do with any additives. There's some who would probably want to add fluoride, and it should be up to the customers to say, I'll choose the water that I want based on the price and the contents. But right now you don't really have a choice. And also the choices are diminishing.
Yeah, we do get the fancy bottled water in the big jugs at Ripple.
Oh, okay, great.
But I wonder where they get the water. Are they just loading it up from the government spigot? Are they producing the water themselves?
Typically, those places own a spring, and so they are incentivized because they own the property to care for it and make sure that the spring is always healthy and bringing them good profits.
Oh, I would love for that to be the case. I hope it is, and if it's not, I think we should try to be more aware of the water. Like, I guess I don't know where our water comes from, so I'm going to find out about that. Maybe try to get it more locally or not government water.
There are probably springs in the area from which you could source your own independent water for your home. Start local, start really local, like your home.
Yeah, that would be awesome. It's like those people who own a cow.
Yeah,
they collectively own a cow and they pay someone to administer it. So maybe a neighborhood or a home could own part of the right to water in a spring.
Why not?
They've had this work in Montana before where you can buy right to a certain amount of a spring, and then it incentivizes people to make the spring have water.
Well, somehow Poland Spring and Nestle and all the rest have come to own their water sources. I don't see why you couldn't here in San Francisco.
All right. Well, I like that. That is definitely a freedom-oriented solution, though. We should empathize with the people who maybe can't afford this private water. What would you say about that?
Well, it would be so cheap. I mean, water is just one of those things like, hey, do you need a piece of paper? Or, hey, you want a pen? I mean, like, people would just give those things away to anyone who asks. And I mean, our bodies are, 70% water? It's just sort of inhumane. it doesn't even cross my mind that someone would refuse a person water who asks. I see businesses who aren't even servicing the homeless as customers, but the homeless are welcome to walk in and treat themselves to a glass of water at restaurants that I frequent. So it would just be the case that I think if it's the case now that people give away water, when it's more abundant and cheaper, they will still give away water, perhaps more.
And even if people wanted public water, like there are public places to drink water, you don't have to pay anything. Like I think that would be pretty cheap to set up. Maybe a few dozen people could pay for it, you know.
I would put advertisements all over it. I could have an outdoor water fountain, own the property that it's on, and advertise Free Talk SF.
There you go. Or maybe advertise something that makes money for your company instead.
Right.
That will pay for the water. I like that. It's a lot like the ADAP idea. The ADAP, which is futuristic housing could have advertisements in it so that people wouldn't have to actually pay for the lowest income housing. And that could be a great solution for San Francisco, though we have to remove the restriction on building more houses. Oh, man. Okay, so this one is just quite awful. The San Francisco police have recently been accused of being racially profiling people.
No.
I know it's shocking. I know it's shocking that you could think that the police were racially profiling Black people. But apparently there were some tweets that came out and some private text messages involving lots of racism. And so rather than lobbying the government to like, hey, fix your police, I really like this solution that a private organization did. They started taking out advertisements advertising how racist the San Francisco police were and exposing their tactics that discriminate against Black people.
Wow. Did they publish their tweets?
I'm not sure.
That would look great on the side of a bus.
I think they
Brought
did.
to you by your local police.
Oh, man. Yeah, and there are some hard-hitting advertisements on the side
It would
of
be
buses.
great because no matter who got upset about it, you could just point the blame at the police. Hey, this isn't us saying this. This is your police department.
Of course, the Police Officers Association came back and said, we are absolutely not racist, and we have no inclination.
That's just what a racist would say.
Yeah, they, if anything, the laws are set up to target people who are already in the lower class. And people who have less money and less privilege, because of the inertia of history, are boxed in by all the laws and regulations. And the same people who make those laws also pay the enforcers. So historically, the Black people, the community here has been less privileged. And so we're just seeing a perpetuation of that. Whether the independent people are racist or not, the demographics cause more police activity going toward those kind of groups.
What are the demographics of the local police here in San Francisco? I mean, are they mostly Black? Are they mostly white?
They're definitely not mostly Black. From what I can tell, I've seen a lot of white police, a lot of Asian police, Hispanic police. I have seen Black police, but less. I don't know. That's a good question.
Because I would imagine it would be less likely that if the police department were more representative of the ethnicities in their local environment where they're patrolling, that they would treat people better, right? if they can identify with the community more.
I think that probably is the case. Maybe it'd be interesting to do a human interest report on that.
Yeah. But it's not certain. I could certainly also see a situation where people from a community suddenly have power over their neighbors and exercise that excessively.
I mean, you can see the vast majority of murders are Black men on Black men. So, and that's in the United States. So I don't know. I don't know if it actually is racism or if it's inertia of privilege versus unprivilege and laws that basically prevent the change there. Well, great news though on the police front. We got it seems like the California government may have done something reasonable. Victory in California. Governor Brown signs Cal ECPA requiring police to get a warrant before accessing your data. I'm well, kind of happy about this. First of all, when were the police not required to get a warrant to access your data? I mean, that is definitely, isn't that in some magic parchment somewhere?
No, they treat this is a big part of the Ross Ulbricht case as well, because they treat file folders in your house differently than they treat file folders on your computer. If they have access to your computer, then they can do a full search through the whole thing. So electronics didn't require a warrant in the same way that your cabinets do.
Wow. Well, now electronics do require a warrant. That includes,
at least here in California.
In San Francisco, and that's the only place that matters for this show. So, digital records, including email, text messages, and GPS locations, must have specific warrants in order to access them. I don't think this is enough, though, for us to be truly independent. We need to prevent physically people from accessing our data. And that means using strong encryption, because if the police can access your data, anyone can access your data. And if there are backdoors, then anyone can hack in.
This would be an incentive for a company that deals in security, digital security, to move to San Francisco or California from a less free place, so that they could promise their customers that their data would be more secure.
Yeah, and I'm pretty confident that this legislation did come from the Silicon Valley major internet companies. Apple and Google have for a long time fought to keep the FBI and the feds out of their data centers, and have been fighting against illegal searches of their own data centers. And I'm sure that they've been pushing really hard to get legal protection. Oh yeah, here we go. In response, Silicon Valley's major players, including Adobe, Apple, Facebook, LinkedIn, Dropbox, Google, and Twitter, all threw their support behind the bill. So there you go. Thank them for standing up for
those
privacy.
Evil companies,
evil corporations. Yeah, they want privacy, and I think they're more anarchist than you might think. All right, so we got that, though. Of course, we always had the right to not be searched by anyone else. And thank you for the governor for affirming his opinion about that as well.
Okay. I still don't trust it. Encrypt everything.
Yeah, right. I mean, you only have the rights that you can enforce yourself in the end. And Governor Jerry Brown is, well, he's a politician clown. So, yeah, encrypt your stuff, and you support companies that support encryption. Oh, I got my man here with me.
Hey, Steven.
I'm so happy. Okay. So Uber has been being sued by basically all over the world, literally all over the world. And the state of California has recently forced them to reveal a bunch of their business practices for no reason. It's kind of bizarre. So they were forced to release some secrets about how long someone has to accept a driver. Accept a ride as a driver, and other weird things, how much they're paying people. I don't know why I brought this one on the show.
It's invasive. It doesn't seem like it's any of their business. I mean, do they ask Ben and Jerry's? Do they go into Ben and Jerry's and ask them about their secrets? Doesn't seem to be any of their business. Not to me, at least.
Great point.
I could understand a private company or customers, like Consumer Reports, being interested in this sort of thing. But not the government. When the government asks for information like this, it's not really a request, it's a demand. So I would like to see businesses complying with these requests voluntarily and saying, yeah, we have nothing to hide. Here, take a look. But this makes their data even more suspicious.
Well, one thing, so this was lobbied for by the the Government Taxi Union or the Government Taxi Association. And these people are really anti-freedom for you. I mean, they don't want you to be able to choose which cars you ride in, and they're always making all kinds of claims about how unsafe the driving is. Obviously, you know that independent drivers with Uber and Lyft provide a much better experience, and it's much better for our local economy, much more efficient, and there are no regulations provided by the state. There are market regulations based on consumer demand, word of mouth, all kinds of reports, the ability to choose between Lyft and Uber and other services. So we have tons of regulations already. We don't need to have them forced upon companies. And that's basically what the taxis are doing here. So it's a last thrashing, sad event by the former taxi monopoly. I'm sure it will be gone totally soon.
Maybe they're looking for a clue. Maybe they want to know their business practices so that they can change and adapt.
Well, that's absolutely what they want. And they're saying Uber doesn't have the right to be an independent business that doesn't share its business secrets. But yeah, I think we should support their independence so that we can get more innovation and differentiation, and not everyone's going to be the same, especially if it's ordered by the state. Oh, man. Okay. We got more. This one just really, really irks me. The Warriors, the Golden State Warriors, a basketball team, has decided to use your money to build a brand new stadium in Mission Bay. They're going to use your money to build the stadium, and they're going to use your money to build new transportation to that stadium, and they're going to ruin your house in Mission Bay. And they're all doing it in collaboration with the city.
Oh my.
Which expects to rake in some amount of revenue. And mainly they just want a NBA team in San Francisco.
This reeks of bread and circuses to me. They're spending your money to entertain you. And you didn't even ask for this. Who knows if you're even going to want it or if it's going to leave you better off.
Well, you know that it's not going to leave you better off.
Otherwise, you would have spent this money on this already yourself.
Yeah, and for people in San Francisco, I actually don't often see a lot of fans of the San Francisco football Niners or the giant batters or the Warrior Hoopers, but there's all people from all around the Bay Area that love to come in and watch these sports events. And for some reason, people keep getting convinced to pay for this. And I guess we're not even being convinced. This is just really, it's not convincing
at all.
Wallet
rape.
Yeah, it's the city board just taking money and saying, oh, don't worry, we'll provide more transportation and we'll pay for the arena and we'll buy up the land. And in the meantime, they prevent you from building more housing here and they prevent you from starting a business. So I think this actually should make most of us more irate than almost anything else. They're wasting everyone's time and promoting a culture that doesn't care about real things.
Does it say how much it's going to cost? Any idea?
$27 million.
Oh, that's not too much.
Yes, and they also expect to raise another additional $10 million to pay for the transit. And they're going to raise that out of your bank account. All right, that's UCSF endorses Warriors' new arena. Okay, this one made me a little bit happy, though. So we've got statists trying to spend all your money on worthless arenas, and then you have them trying to build more state subways. Some Secretary of Transportation or another here in San Francisco has been rallying all the global subway administrator people that are working in the government. And they had a big conference this week, but they were complaining that unfortunately federal funds for infrastructure projects like subways are drying up and going away. So they're going to have to do without. So that was positive
Yay!
news that people in this city are not benefiting at the expense of other people in other areas who can't even use the subway.
And subways are 19th century technology. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing in the 21st century that the government would say, like, hey, we need a good idea. What are we going to do? How about that idea we had 200 years ago? Let's try that again. People are like, I see alternatives like Uber, where I can use my phone and have a more personalized ride for about the same price. No thanks. I don't need your expensive building project.
Right. And obviously, history and economics have shown and proven how inefficient all of these big projects are, and they're giant capital outlays that aren't even necessary. And as we see Lyft and Uber, their targets for reducing traffic are reducing it to 2 to 5% of historical traffic because of all the efficiencies provided by ride sharing and in the future robotic cars. These huge infrastructure things are pretty ridiculous, in my opinion. Now we're starting to see Lyft, buses, all kinds of different private options.
Well, that is encouraging that the people aren't falling for it. I mean, often, even if people don't want something, the government can make them pay for it anyway. But this is an idea that's so unpopular that the government can't even pretend to push propaganda that says, you like this, you want this, you're paying for it.
Well, the bad news is they're probably spending the money on bombs instead.
Not San Francisco.
No, the money that the feds were going to maybe
this
spend.
is Fed money?
Yeah, well, there's no Fed money coming. So now we just have to prevent it from leaving in the first place, and we'll be much better off.
Yeah.
One hilarious thing, though, I saw was the local director for transportation here says his goal is to always be building a new subway, always, until the entire city has subways underneath it. The entire city, and never stop. That's his plan. No specifics. Sounds like just a ridiculous government concoction.
That sounds like the kid in 8th grade who ran for class president on more vending machines and free candy in every homeroom. Just, I'll promise you anything. Here, it's going to be great. Subways everywhere. We've got no actual plan.
Yeah, and maybe if I was trying to convince someone to vote for me, I would say we will build the subway and then we'll be done with it, so you can use it. But he's just saying we'll build it forever.
It's going to be a forever project, and no more homework.
No more grades or homework, and puppies for everyone, and the subway will be free. Okay, so enough of that. I was glad to see that all of their plans are falling through. Like they had a big plan to build a subway up to North Beach, and they couldn't obtain the land in time, so they had to cut it short. Yeah. So more market-based solutions, please. We can channel all that excess wealth into helping people. All right. Okay. So final news story today. This one takes us a little bit into bizarro land. I guess most of this news is bizarre to me. But so we all know there's a big problem of people not being able to afford houses in San Francisco. Everyone's experiencing it. The prices are going up. We saw 8% last year increase in median one-bedroom house prices. That's up to $3,600 for a one-bedroom apartment on average. Sorry, median. I said median. And there was a law that was passed by the city council trying to prevent people from being evicted. And what it said was if a building owner wanted to evict someone, they had to provide 2 years of rent for them to find another place. 2 whole years of rent for them to find another place, and that's unlimited rent. And so this is making it very hard.
Why is that unlimited rent? What do you mean?
There was no limit to the amount that they would have to pay. They had to pay for 2 years worth. So
no matter where you land?
Well,
no matter what your next place is?
Yeah, it would have to be like something at the median or above.
Okay.
So
That's like what happened during the dot-com boom. A lot of people were bought out of their houses when housing prices started to increase, and people were offered tens, even hundreds of thousands of dollars just to move out so that the building could be knocked down and made to be filled with people who could afford way higher rent.
yeah,
I mean,
and
that happened like 20 years ago.
that did happen. And in that case, people weren't being forced to pay for that,
Right. Yeah, that's true.
right? But
They were being offered money voluntarily.
I guess it's most important to empathize with the people who are being evicted. And, well, maybe not most important, but it is, we should. Or
So these evictions, they're force, right? I mean, you have to get out or they'll call the police. It's not just like, hey, will $20,000 get you out? Will $50,000 get you out? And the price just keeps getting higher until you negotiate. It's not negotiations, is it?
no,
Eviction
I
sounds
think
like
they're saying like,
we're calling in the guns and you got to get out.
yeah. So, and that's an interesting thing. So if there was no state and you were some landlord who doesn't live in the building, you live somewhere else, you own all these places, and then you tell everyone in the house you're evicted, what right do you have to move those people out?
You don't.
They're the ones using the house.
If you have a contract with them, I mean, if the end of the contract is up, then get out. If you don't have a contract with somebody, but if you still got it and you want to break it, you've got to offer them some money or something. You've got to offer them something to sweeten the deal.
Well, what this is, I'm not sure that people have unlimited contracts. They're just being evicted. And, but a judge has struck down this law that requires the evictors to pay this money. And why I said this was so bizarre is like the judge wasn't referring to any type of objective set of values or morals or anything. Like, wasn't saying this is wrong because it's wrong to like force landlords, or I guess it's wrong to force owners of buildings to pay for people they haven't contracted with. It was none of that. It was just like, this measure seemed unreasonable, and like the amount should have been adjusted, and it just was unreasonable. So
yeah, he was just sticking his thumb to the wind and just seeing like, does this seem right? He wasn't actually referring to any principles in his decision.
Exactly. And I think in order for us to solve this problem, we have to get down to real principles that we can build a community on, and that are really foundational.
Like property rights?
Like property rights. Or homesteading rights.
Or respect for contracts.
Respect for contracts would be great. Especially the ability for people to build new houses. That is not possible according to the city of San Francisco. The corporate city of San Francisco, have banned, using the threat of guns and prisons, the building of any new houses. So that necessarily means the price of housing is going to rise, and they're always trying to obstruct or construct all of these new rules and things to box in the problem and contain it, make sure people don't get kicked out, when really they should just let go of the restrictions and allow more houses to be built.
Yeah, or allow houses to be knocked down and made taller. I'm looking around this neighborhood and I see it's very populated, and most of the houses are 3 stories. Why shouldn't they be 6 stories? Fit twice as many people in the same space. Keep rent low. Or reduce rent.
Yeah, I would imagine if there was freedom of competition, the rent would reduce down to however much people could pay.
I think it'd be lower than it is now.
It would certainly be lower. And before, we had all kinds of government housing programs and subsidies for housing and restrictions on building housing. Thinking the 1950s, 1960s, one could buy a house with a single year's salary. Think about that. The independence of people being able to buy a house with a single year's salary. Now, if they buy a house, they don't have real independence. They have to pay huge
a deal
sums.
till death.
They don't own it. They're leasing it from the state, and they have to pay huge sums in taxes every year, which just incentivizes them to sell it for more to a developer. So instead of having independent ownership, we have all kinds of restrictions. Yeah. Well, there was a lot of good news, and
There's one thing I wanted to mention, that there's a guy running for mayor. Have you heard about Broke Ass Stewart?
No.
Yeah, there's a guy running for mayor who apparently has a website. So his Facebook page is facebook.com/brokeassstewart. And he's running his campaign on almost no money, and he's running against Ed Lee, the incumbent mayor, who's got tons of money behind him in the tech industry, and the weight of being an incumbent helps get you reelected. But this guy's just pounding pavement, going to the street, meeting regular people, and one of his major issues is helping the homeless. So while I don't support having anyone in a seat of power, this guy seems to me to be like the most reasonable mayor there could possibly be. He's a regular guy. He goes by Broke Ass Stewart, and his life's mission seems to be helping people live more affordably. And if San Francisco needs anything, I think it needs that.
Totally agree. And it seems like a lot of people are trying to make it possible to live more affordably, though he's most likely a communist.
He probably is, but I mean, he has a website where he directs people to resources on like how to live on the cheap, like how to save money, not like, oh, go to the state and they'll give you what you need, or we'll give away lots of goodies. It's not a free homework type of candidate.
I like that. Things that will actually help people be more independently able to afford.
Yeah. I haven't looked into him. I'm not throwing my support behind him, but I just think it's interesting and it's great whenever someone involves themselves in local politics like this and actually wants to help people.
Well, maybe you can throw some money and support behind his campaign to teach people how to save.
Right.
But don't elect him. Please don't elect anyone. Okay. Thank you for tuning in to Free Talk SF. I am Steven Zeiler, joining with Derek J. As always, dance like no one's watching. And despite what Governor Jerry Brown might want to trick you into thinking, you still need to encrypt like everyone's watching, because they are. And of course, be free and independent and empathize with everyone around you. Yeah. Thank you.